The 25-26 NBA season is officially underway. The Warriors played their first preseason game tonight against the Lakers and came away with a victory. But obviously, that's not what's important. What's important for this season, and for me it's been like that for the last few years, is first and foremost taking a look at Steph Curry and what he looks like. Because Steph Curry is getting older, since the age of maybe 35-ish, you start looking at him and seeing how he moves, see how his lateral movement looks, see how his defense looks, and notice if he's starting to slow down a little bit, and if he is, to what extent. So for me, when a new season starts, that's always the first thing that I am looking for when it comes to the Warriors. How does Steph Curry look this season? And obviously, with the way the roster is constructed, Steph Curry is not the only one that we have to take a look at when it comes to how the players look. Draymond is 35, Jimmy Butler is 36, and Al Horford is 39. So we're going to go over some generalities in this video. We're going to go over some of the key players and how they looked in their first preseason game. And if that sounds good to you, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that like button so that this video gets out to all the Warriors fans out there. Now, before we get going, first, I would like to sincerely thank you guys so much for all the heartfelt messages, the congratulatory remarks, and the celebration, that energy that you guys shared with me about the news of my son being born. I really think through this channel, we are building a wonderful and beautiful community. And to know that I can rely on you guys means a lot to me. So I appreciate you more than you know. The other thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on is a thing that I wanted to do this season possibly, and it's through the Playback app. If you don't know what that is, it's an app where I am able to go on live. I can share clips, I can share videos, I can share whatever it is that I want to show you. I'll be on live and you'll be joining me on my channel on the app. And there's two ways to go about it. One, the app allows you to be on live and watch the games live. The other is I can simply go live, schedule it maybe 2-3 times per week. And if you guys join me there, you can either listen in or join me on stage and maybe have a discussion. If you have any specific questions that you would like to ask me, I'll be able to address it. I can announce the schedules per week so that you'll know what to expect. And if this sounds like something of interest to you, please let me know. I'll leave a comment down below, and based on your level of interest, I will determine whether this is something that I would like to do this season or not. If you are interested in this, I may even run a contest for somebody to be able to win a prize. What would the prize be? Something like a Steph Curry basketball card, something along those lines. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to decide what card makes most sense to turn into a prize for an opportunity for you to win it. And well, here's a few. There's this, there's this, there's this, and this. And I mean, some of them are worth hundreds of dollars, some of them are worth a little less. But regardless, like I said, I will determine what card can be won depending on the level of interest that is shown. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, let's get straight to what happened in this game. First and foremost, like I said, Steph Curry looks spry. He looks great. He looked more than great. It just doesn't even make any sense how this guy is 37 years old and in the middle of the season, he will be 38 years old. It is absolutely unprecedented for a player who is at the point guard position to be the best player of that team to continue to play at the highest level possible at the age of 37 going on 38. And I just don't know when he's going to start slowing down, but it sure looks like he's not going to slow down anytime soon. Beautiful news for us, maybe not so much for Joe Lacob. And crazy enough, Steph Curry's trainer said not long ago about how Steph Curry looks better than ever, stronger than ever, quicker than ever, all these things. First step looks amazing. And to me, it's like, yeah, that's cool and all. You're his trainer. Of course, you're going to say those things, but I have to see this for myself. And tonight, he left little doubt in my mind. 14 points, 5 of 7 shooting from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line, 15 minutes of play. Guys, we are blessed with a player that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that's good news number one. Good news number two, Al Horford. How would he look at the age of 39. He's actually a year older than Steph Curry. And he's just been doing this forever. And again, Father Time is undefeated. You never know when a player just starts to diminish and is just a lesser version of himself, starts to play less minutes, starts to suffer more injuries, starts to become more unreliable, and then they get a diminished role and all this stuff, right? And while Horford didn't do much in terms of scoring the ball tonight, he shot 1 of 3, all from the three-point line. He did hit one of them. It's about his fundamental understanding of what to do, where to be, what play to make, who to defend, how to defend them, with what force, seeing the floor on both ends of the floor, being an anchor, being a passer, all the things that are going to help you win basketball games. And Al Horford, to me, looked every bit as good as advertised. 3 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 3 blocks, a plus 13 in 14 minutes of play. What a blessing it is to get a player like this, a guy who can give you two-way play at that center spot where you can finally limit the amount of minutes that Draymond gets at that center spot because he's been diminishing from that position for quite a minute now. It was simply a joy and a privilege to have an opportunity to watch a player of this caliber, as old as he may be, to be put next to Steph Curry. What an incredible grab by Mike Dunleavy in the offseason. And thank God that Al Horford didn't back out of his word and decide not to join the Warriors for whatever reason, because that could have totally happened. And then there's Jimmy Butler, who's actually a little bit older than Draymond Green. Jimmy just turned 36 years old. And honestly, he looks exactly the same as he did last season. Goodness gracious. Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Al Horford. I mean, these guys are such professionals at what they do, and they're so reliable. You just know that they are going to be reliable every time they're on the floor. And to have 3 guys like that on the team at the same time, well, that just warms my little heart. And then there's Draymond. Draymond, I think that Draymond's defense at the end of the day will continue to be there. And despite the fact that out of the 4 players that I just mentioned, Draymond is the youngest of them, I feel like he would be the first one to show signs of diminishing, especially on the offensive end of the floor. Tonight he shot 1 of 6 from the field, missing just bunnies and layups right at the rim. And I just wonder how much work did this guy actually put in the off season when it comes to his offense and being crisp coming into the season. I don't know if you guys saw, but maybe about a month ago or so, there were some clips that came out where he was playing some pickup games with his teammates. And some of these shots that he was throwing up, I just couldn't believe my eyes. The level of airballing that he was doing in consecutive possessions, I just don't understand it. I truly don't. And I don't want to be too hard on him. Again, this is literally the first preseason game of the season. And at the end of the day, the most important thing that Draymond can provide for the Warriors, aside from the playmaking, is his defensive versatility and what that's going to look like next to Al Horford. But honestly, man, let's just think about this for a second. You got Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Al Horford, and Draymond Green. And that is 4 guys that are just entrenched as a part of the Warriors fixture, their core. Most likely their closing lineup as well. Draymond just doesn't need to be at that center spot much longer. And all we have to do is figure out one more player to fit in there to help close games for the Warriors on most nights. I think it's probably going to end up being DeAnthony Melton, who again is not available for the foreseeable future. And that's a little unfortunate. We do need to see how he looks coming back from like an 11th month layoff. Okay, now that we've covered the most important guys, now let's take a look at some of the secondary players and what they look like in the first preseason game. Needless to say, Moses Moody had a huge game. He looked incredibly comfortable and confident in his shot making. He actually led all players with 19 points in just 15 minutes of play. 7 of 9 from the field, 5 of 7 from the 3-point line. We've seen that kind of shooting from Moses Moody before, especially in the early going. So we'll see if Moody actually takes a bit of a leap this season. And if he does end up taking a leap, he actually has the potential to be the starting shooting guard for this team, especially if he can shoot that 3-point shot with more consistency. He, by far, has the biggest wingspan at that shooting guard spot. He has a 7'1" wingspan, and he is capable of being a tenacious defender. So let's say Steph Curry, Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Al Horford. if Moody's shooting can elevate and become more consistent, and he can shoot something close to 40% from the three-point line, that could potentially be a game changer. And then there's Potts, who got off to a bit of a slow start, but picked up his play in the second half. And generally speaking, he had a pretty typical Potts-like game, and he will be going into his third season, so we'll see if he can take some kind of a leap going into this season. Although I'm not necessarily sure that he took a leap based on what I saw in tonight's game. He looked like the same Potts that I saw last season. There wasn't anything fundamentally different about whatever he was doing out there. And we'll see soon enough. But one thing that I thought was interesting was the starting lineup. The starting lineup was Steph Curry, Potts, Moody, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond. I mean, this is literally the lineup that Steve Kerr had to abandon very early on in that Rockets series in the first round of the playoffs because it wasn't working. I had warned throughout the course of last season that that lineup is not going to be viable in the playoffs. And anything that you do in preparation for the playoffs, in the regular season, preseason, whatever, has to make sense in conjunction with your long-term plan for what things are going to look like in the playoffs. That's how my mind always works. Is this going to be viable come playoffs? And you have to figure that out as much as possible. And if something doesn't seem like it's viable for the playoffs, then you shouldn't be doing it, and you shouldn't be doing it consistently because you have to scrap it when the playoffs come around. And needless to say, you don't want Draymond starting at the 5 for no good reason at the age of 35 going on 36, and he's slowly diminishing and all these things. You're going to be taxing his body. You're going to make Jimmy Butler's job harder because you're putting him at power forward. The guy should be a shooting guard or small forward. You should minimize his time at the power forward spot as much as possible. So why in the world, in a preseason game, the first one of the season, are you electing to go small? So essentially what Steve Kerr told us is that we're going to go through more BS this season in terms of him throwing out a bunch of nonsensical lineups, small lineups, 3-guard lineups, JK at the 4, all this kind of stuff that has not worked for him for the last 3 years. The guy never learns. But at least the Warriors have better personnel and enough that they are likely going to be able to overcome some of these nonsensical decisions that Steve Kerr will continue to make, and he will never change because he's shown it for the last 10 years that he's incapable of change. And then there's Jonathan Kuminga. There's a giant question mark in terms of how Kuminga is going to fit with this team before the trade deadline. Can he do all the things like an Al Horford, like a Jimmy Butler, a guy who can kind of do a little bit of everything in terms of whatever the team needs? Make the extra pass, make the extra effort defensively, make the extra effort boxing out, being able to get to loose balls, making the timely passes, all these things. And well, things didn't start off so well for him in this game. He had the worst plus minus on the team at halftime, -9. But I'm going to chalk that up to Steve Kerr putting him at the power forward spot with 3 smaller guys. Al Horford was out there for a little bit. But I just continue to know that Kuminga's best position is not at power forward. If the Warriors want to play the most elite brand of basketball, you have to keep Kuminga at the 3 as much as possible and use him as a POA type and not try to use him as a stretch 4 and force him into that power forward role where he's just not that good at it. And I just don't think that that's going to change anytime soon, any year soon. But having said that, he did do some positive things in this game. 5 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, a block shot, made the extra pass, was tenacious enough on the glass. And these are things that we want to see from Kuminga. And if he's consistently able to do powerful things on the floor and play at the level of, let's say, at least a playoff caliber player, then a lot can change for this team. But we have a long way to go. And then there were 3 other guys. They're like the usual suspects, let's call them. Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, GP2. I mean, these guys are what they are at this point in the NBA. They're not going to significantly change anything. They are who they are at this point. I thought that for the most part, all 3 of them played pretty well in this game. And then there's Trayce Jackson-Davis and Guy Santos. These guys got to play in the second half of this game. And they did some good things, but I wasn't necessarily thrilled with what I saw because I didn't really see significant improvements in anything that they were doing, especially for Trayce. I just feel like What did you work on in the offseason? Did you come in with a new aggressive mindset? Are you more aggressive where you need to be, whether it's around the basket or whether it's the way you set screens? I didn't necessarily see those things in this game. I didn't see necessarily like a full out effort from him. And I think that's something that he needs to be doing if he wants to be in rotation for this team, because you know that Steve Kerr loves Quinton Post's ability to shoot the ball. So if Trace is going to get ahead of Quinton Post in the rotation, he's got to go all out and show that energy that he showed in his rookie year. I did not see that in this game, so I was relatively disappointed. And speaking of Quinton Post, I didn't really see much from him either in terms of defensive improvement, being able to move a little bit better after throwing up a pump fake to shoot a 3-point shot. It was a huge issue for him last season because the defense is now paying more attention to him, so they recover on him better. So he throws up a pump fake, the defense jumps at him, and once the defense jumps at him, he doesn't have the ability to put the ball down and get to a different spot on the floor. So every time he throws up a pump fake, the defense is going to recover and the play is going to end up resetting with the ball in his hands. Not good. Defensively, I didn't really see much in terms of, does he look different? Does he look sturdier? Does he look stronger? And I know that when he gets his opportunities, he is going to make an impact in the regular season. But if he doesn't improve from last season from a defensive standpoint, then the same thing is going to play out when they get into the playoffs. He's going to be virtually unplayable. He's going to be stuck in the mud. The game's going to be going too fast for him. The defense is going to recover on him. He's not going to get the opportunity to take a bunch of wide open shots. And that's not going to be a good thing for the Warriors. So Steve even tried a combination of Trace and Quinton Post in the second half in that fourth quarter. And unfortunately, I didn't see this dynamicness about those two guys being on the floor at the same time. Trace being the roller, Quinton Post being the spacer. And then you have two big bodies out there at the same time. Maybe it was a personnel issue in terms of who else was with them, who's creating shots for them, and this kind of thing. Maybe it looks very different if either Steph Curry or DeAnthony Melton is out there as opposed to Pat Spencer and maybe a little bit of Potts or something like this. So obviously I'm not coming to any definitive conclusions by any means after one preseason game. But generally, these are some of the things that I noticed. I'm still excited to have DeAnthony Melton back into the equation. Seth Curry will be playing in the next game. And all around, I feel very comfortable and confident in my belief that the Warriors are absolute contenders this season. I do think that they're still like one piece away from being like the indisputable favorite, like a top 3 team in the league, top 2 team in the league. But that's a ways away. There's plenty more preseason games to come. There's plenty more to see. Guys getting more into a rhythm and showing the best version of themselves. But that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, Steph Curry is the GOAT.